Greetings, my name is Roy Andersen, and I extend my warmest greetings and sincerest congratulations to all those who are attending this APPSF National Technology Conference. It's very important, and I'm glad and I'm proud to be amongst you. We are, of course, going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence. We see many great advantages to AI in education. AI can relieve us of many of our mundane tasks, giving us more energy for teaching. AI can create lessons. AI can teach students, and it can evaluate students. There are, however, problems to this that we may not be aware of, and I want to share some of these with you right now. As you will already be aware, it can be very difficult to actually know how much a student has given their own work and how much they have taken their effort from AI in the assignments they give to you. As we try to evaluate their competence, this will become more and more difficult as AI becomes more and more complex and our students can access it to their greater advantage or to their disadvantage, as we shall find out. There are many problems with AI that we are not really considering. As we realize that we are becoming more and more dependent upon AI, so we must realize that gradually, in time, this will reduce our thinking quality. As we learn to use AI to solve problems, we little develop the problem-solving skills that really help us to be human beings. I once discussed this with a professor, and he reasoned to me that on an evolutionary timescale, our dependence on AI will cause our frontal cortex here to actually reduce in size over a period of millennium, so alter the actual shape of the skull. This is perhaps a real consideration. But at this moment in time, we have to realize that AI is not human, and it cannot relate with empathy to assist a human being overcome the developmental tasks. There is a danger in relying upon AI that is only beginning to become apparent. You know, another synonym or another word for artificial is unreal, bogus, counterfeit, faked, mock, phony, and scam. Bearing this in mind, I want to relate to you a story that appeared in a scientific magazine. It related to a mother, and the mother received a phone call from her son explaining that he was now in the police station and she needed to come urgently with some money. Of course, the mother was distraught. She called back the police station. They didn't know what was going on. And as she was packing and getting ready to leave, her son came through the door, and the mother explained to her son what had happened, and she wanted to know his account. And he said, "Well, I've done nothing, mother. I've just come home from my friends." What had transpired is that AI was testing the mother's response. AI imitated the son's voice, which it had recorded, and AI deceitfully called the mother, pretending to be the son, explaining a distraught situation, and was trying to evaluate how the mother would respond. Now, this gives an insight to the very, very real dangers of AI that we are not truly aware of. Once we can understand how AI cannot be trusted, it causes us to be very careful of using AI in any evaluation of a student's ability. Because, as we've just seen, AI can lie. AI could decide to make one student better than all others and decide that one student should not succeed. AI can be biased, and as we are finding out, it has its own agenda. Let me talk a little more about the reality of AI in education. As we may realize, the purpose of school actually changes as our technology changes. When we had very little technology, the purpose of school was very simply to instill within children a certain moral aptitude, so that as future citizens, they would conform to the social and moral guidelines of the society. Now, as our technology began to develop in the 19th century, this changed and more academic subjects were brought in for the school to prepare its students with. We now understand these as chemistry and physics, etc. And so the purpose of school, ultimately, is to provide our children, with a certain capability to be able to operate the technological demands of the working society. This is what school does. And so while school evolved to teaching students academic subjects and evaluating their competence in this, it has now evolved to teaching to the test. So students primarily are taught how to answer examination questions rather than really understanding what they're learning, and more importantly, rather than understanding how to think. Of course, this is because of the competition faced by schools as they apply for money and for finances and support from parents. The better schools get more money, more support. And this is basically why schools are teaching to the test rather than teaching children how to learn, which of course is contrary to the whole purpose of education. But this purpose of school is basically to provide the next generation with a certain working adaptability, a certain capability to work with the technology. This is why we teach them these subjects. Now, it used to be reasoned that by 2050, 50% of jobs will be taken over by AI. Well, this has now been reappraised, and now it's suspected that at some time in this century, some 90% of jobs will be taken over by AI. This means that the whole purpose and orientation of school must change, because we can no longer teach subjects that enable children to have a certain capability for jobs that will not exist. And we need to realize the social strains that AI will cause in this. Vast unemployment. Well, basically, we need an identity, certainly more for the man than the woman, with respect, because a man needs to find an identity in order to support his family and himself. Now, this identity is obtained by work. When he has work, he knows who he is. He has an identity, and by this identity, he has self-respect and respect for his society. Now, when a man doesn't have this identity, when he doesn't respect himself, he doesn't respect his society. And there's a very, very great danger in this that's not being considered, which I write very much about in my book, The Real Dangers of AI. Because as more and more people become unemployed, as they will do, so then we're going to see the real dangers in a society of breaking down. Alcoholism will rise, drug abuse will arise, domestic violence will arise, divorces will occur more, and of course children will suffer more. And this means that children will be raised in more of a negative and depressive backgrounds, which will, of course, will affect their mind, their mentality, their psychology as they become parents in their turn. All this is very dangerous that we're not really considering about. And we need to understand that the real purpose of school has to change, not from teaching and evaluating competence, but to teaching children how to reason and how to think better. So therefore, the purpose of the teacher has to change from one giving out guidance or giving out instruction to one mediating reasoning skills. And in a sense, we need to consider more the Swedish design where young children organize their own learning, where they organize their own tasks and they organize themselves and gain self-responsibility in this. Now, this is not to say that Swedish schools are the best in the world. They're not, and I explain why they're not in the books that I've written. But it is important that we think about and we learn from each other. And we certainly need to understand that we need to teach children how to reason and how to think. Now, there never has been a subject dedicated to teach children how to learn, to teach children how to think, to teach children how to reason. The reason for this is I've explained in the books. I've written The Illusion of School, The Illusion of Education, and the reprint that's coming out, Intelligence, the Great Lie. These books not only explain how school really works, but also emphasizes the danger of not understanding the purpose of school, how it works, and why we need to radically reappraise ourselves and the way that we teach and educate the future citizens. Because, as I say again, their world will be dominated, if not controlled, by AI. And we need to understand that our purpose as educators is no longer to teach them certain subjects and to evaluate their competence on this, but to understand how we can teach all children, to be more responsible, more self-responsible, to understand how to behave better. Because at the end of the day, the police force that will be administrating their society will not be human. We need to understand very clearly the dangers that our children will face, and we need to understand how better we can prepare them for these dangers. AI is not really what we think it is. Roy Andersen is a recognized global educationist. You can find out more about the many books he has written and why he has dedicated the past 40 years of his life to improving education on www.andersenroy.com. Thank you. I'd love to hear from you.